A Florida man remains behind bars nearly 2 years after his murder conviction was overturned. Crosley Green has been in prison for more than 3 decades for a crime he says he did not commit. A federal judge overturned his conviction, but his freedom depends on a decision from the U.S. Court of Appeals. Erin Moriarty has been following this case for more than 20 years, and she shares new details in this week's 48 Hours.
On March 12, 2020, Crosley Green's attorneys took on the state of Florida in front of the U.S. Court of Appeals.
Let me tell my story to the court system.
Nearly 2 years ago, a federal court overturned Green's conviction for the murder of Chip Flynn. Flynn was found shot in a Florida citrus grove on April 4, 1989.
I did not kill a young man.
After Flynn's ex-girlfriend, Kim Halleck, called 911 to report a shooting, Brevard County Deputy Sheriff Mark Rixey and Sergeant Diane Clark responded to the call.
Something is not ringing true. It didn't feel right.
Chip Flynn was bleeding from a single gunshot wound to his chest and later died. Kim Halleck claimed a black man had robbed and shot him.
The black guy stepped out with a gun, and I heard about 5 or 6 gunshots.
You don't see anybody else around. You don't see any shell casings, and it just makes you wonder.
It's unfortunately a classic case of what is often referred to as a racial hoax, which is a black guy did it.
Rixey and Clark met with then prosecutor Christopher White.
I told him I thought she did it.
White spoke with us in 2015.
I don't see how there's anything here concrete to tell anybody that Kim Halleck lied.
Mark and Diane suspect the girl did it.
White's notes from his meeting with Rixey and Clark were never turned over to Green's defense.
I knew immediately that this was a game changer.
And it was. It's what convinced the federal court to overturn Green's conviction. His attorneys now hope that the U.S. Court of Appeals will affirm that ruling. What's the best case here?
The court rules in our favor. At that point, we would move for Crosley's immediate release from prison.
I'm just hoping and praying that day comes soon.
All right, so Erin Moriarty is joining us now. When Vlad said you've been following this case for 20 years, I know that you know this case inside out and backwards. But what is going on? He should not be behind bars if the murder conviction was overturned. I presume he's still there. When is the court going to make its final decision?
This is astounding to me. It was overturned July 2018. It's now April 2020. And that's because the state of Florida appealed it. And then you file all these different briefs. And then luckily for Crosley, there were oral arguments on March 12th. And so even though the whole world seems like it has stopped since then, his attorneys are hoping that there will be a decision within 3 to 6 months. Can I just explain why I have worked on this story this long? And I heard you, Anne Marie, kind of going, what? Crosley Green's attorneys allege that the only reason why Crosley Green is in prison is because of a racial hoax, that his entire prosecution and conviction happened because a witness said a black guy did it. And when you see our full hour, you will see that the evidence really seems to support that. And it's hard to believe that in 2020, something like this could continue, especially since right now he's sitting in prison, technically not convicted of any crime.
This is unbelievable. I mean, so paint 2 scenarios for us, Erin. Best case and worst case for Crosley Green.
Well, obviously, best case is that the court affirms the lower court ruling that his conviction was overturned, and then the state will have 2 choices, either to retry him or let him go. And I think it's going to be very difficult to retry him, and I could explain that later. But the worst case, of course, would be if the Court of Appeals said, no, those notes weren't important enough to the original trial, and say he remains in prison. I should point out, I sat through those oral arguments. At no time did the state of Florida say, oh, this guy is guilty. There's so much evidence against him. I should point out that this is now a one-witness case. The 3 people who testified against Crosley during the trial all admitted they lied on the stand. There's no physical evidence at all to tie him to this. It is this one woman's voice saying it was Crosley Green who robbed, hijacked, and shot Chip Flynn. That's it. That's it. That's all that existed.
So is there a possibility, though, that he could be retried? And if that does happen, what of Kim Hollick? You said it's a one-witness case, essentially. It looks like her testimony is being discredited.
Well, I mean, she would say no, and the state of Florida would say no. But there's so many inconsistencies in her story, from what she told the police, from what she told Chip Flynn's parents, from the story when she first called 911. So what will happen is if, in fact, Crosley Green is retried, there really will be people on trial, certainly Crosley Green, but the credibility of Kim Hollick will absolutely be front and center in a case like this. And I think it will be a very different trial. They will bring in alibi witnesses. I've been told by Crosley Green's attorneys that there are 8 alibi witnesses. He was supposedly 2 miles away at a party, and people really remember because there was a fight that had broken out and he had stopped it, and people remembered that. And so it really will come down to the word of Kim Hollick, if in fact there is a trial.
Is it possible, Erin, that it's a case of mistaken identity, that she picked the wrong man?
Well, there's always that possibility, but she told one of the original deputy sheriffs on the scene that the weapon that the assailant had looked a lot like his, which is a semi-automatic, and there are absolutely no shell casings. She said she heard 5 or 6 shots. In another interview, she said she saw the bullet. I said no shell casings, no sign of any other bullets, no other weapon. The only bullet found at the scene was the one that killed Chip Flynn, and even the state admits that it's consistent from his own weapon. So there are no fingerprints, Crosley Green, there's nothing. So yes, it's possible that it's a case of mistaken identity, but there's not much, if any, evidence to indicate that there was an assailant at all. It's troubling.
Erin Moriarty, yeah, this is exactly something that you've been following for over 2 decades. Thank you for your reporting on this. And certainly everybody wants to hear more, and so they can hear more this weekend on 48 Hours. Erin, thank you very much.
Thanks. It's always great being here. Take care, both you guys.
Thanks for waiting around for us, too. Thanks for waiting around. So to hear more about this case, watch 48 Hours Saturday night, 10 Eastern. You can also watch it on demand at CBS All Access.